Alright guys, we're back. Sorry I had to go get some stuff. Now, as you can see, I actually took one of the X-clamps off just for time purposes. So I'm going to be doing a little bit of, I'm going to show you guys how to do the X-clamp fix and the penny trick. So we're going to make sure our Xbox is completely fixed and we should have no problems with that. Alright, now, I took one of the X-clamps off, as I said. Now all I had to do was, once you take it off, by the way, one of the heat sinks will fall out. Okay, so here's the X-clamp. You just kind of have to pry up under it, and I took this one actually off partially, just for time purposes, because these are probably the most time-consuming things on the Xbox. They take a little while to get off. Okay, so this may even take a little bit. I may put it through fast forward. I'm not quite sure. So all we have to do is just kind of, you got to get in between. There's a little knob right here. Get in between the knob and the X-clamp and pry. Now I wouldn't be too forceful with it because you may end up damaging, the motherboard if you're too forceful. But if you pry on both sides, it kind of came up right there, okay? Because once you get two of them off, they come up very easily. Now once we get the X-clamp off, we should be able to pull up. Let me zoom out here. We should just be able to pull up, and there's the other heat sink. Alright, for those X-clamp people, right here is our problem. These two chips right here. As you can see, there is some sort of resemblance of a paste on there, but it's rubbed away and it wasn't applied very well. So what we're going to do, what you want is some rubbing alcohol, alright? I just have and a Q-tip. Now just take the rubbing alcohol, or the Q-tip rather, as you can see right here, and just kind of dab it in there. Alright, so now we have our Q-tip all dabbed in rubbing alcohol. We're going to take it, and right here on the chip, just scrub it a little bit, and the chip should actually end up being kind of shiny after you clean it with the rubbing alcohol. Alright guys, so I'm going to go ahead and clean these chips. Another thing you're going to want to do is right here on the bottom of the heat sinks, there's more of that stuff. Clean that as well, and do that for both heat sinks, both chips, and I'm going to come back when I'm done. Alright. Alright guys, I'm back. I cleaned the chips off as well as I could. Now sometimes you may not be able to get all of it off. Sometimes there's just some stuck on gunk that you can't exactly scrub off. So if that is the case with you, don't worry about it, but you do need to get anything off with the rubbing alcohol and the Q-tip that can just kind of come off. Okay, that needs to come off. I said come off like a lot. Yeah, I know. Whatever. So now we're going to use actually our thermal paste. Now you may have Arctic Silver 5. I just have this cheap stuff from eBay. You really don't need to buy big expensive thermal paste. People say that this is better than Arctic Silver 5, whatever. So you're just going to apply a little bit. You don't want a ton, alright? So just a little bit straight to the chip. Straight to each chip. Now when I say a little bit, I mean it. I don't want you to just put like a tiny, tiny bit, because then you would have taken this whole thing apart for no reason. But I'll zoom in so you guys can get a good shot of how much I put on there. I know, hold on one second. It doesn't look like it's going to come back in focus, but I didn't put too much on the chips, alright? It was just a little dab. Okay, so now we want to grab one of our Q-tips again and simply spread this around. We're just going to go ahead and put a little bit more. Now this stuff is kind of a little bit sticky, as you can see. It's tearing apart the Q-tip here. Don't worry about it. Alright. So once we do that, what we're going to do now is we're going to put our heat sinks back on. This is where the X-clamp fix comes into place. Alright guys, now that I applied the thermal paste, all I'm doing is putting the X-clamps, or the heat sinks back on with the X-clamps. Now, some people will say, or you'll go on eBay, and some people will be selling an X-clamp fix set, which honestly, what they're doing is selling you screws so you can take these studs out and then put screws in it, but it's not necessary. They say that the reason that it overheats is because there's too much pressure on the motherboard, which, if you think about it, number one, these things don't put that much pressure on it anyway. Number two, that doesn't even sound like a logical reason on why the motherboard would overheat. So you just kind of have to think to yourself, does this even sound, logical? So just put these heat sinks back in. They should go right back in the spots that they came out of. After you put them back in, this is actually fairly simple right here. You may have to deal with it a little bit, but just once again for time, I put one of them on already. These X clamps have like a little lip on them right here, and you just kind of take the lip, push it over them. Now, at most, you may have to get a little flathead and kind of. I recommend putting one of them on, one of the lips on, and then the one right next to it with that one on as well. Okay. Alright guys, so I got the X clamp back on. Now I must have lied or something, because that took a little more than it did for the other one. You may or may not have to, mess around with it like I did. In the end, what worked out was just kind of putting the flathead up against the screw, and then kind of pushing the X clamp onto the bolt with that.